You've finally stepped foot onto the sands of Arrakis, and while the environment can be quite unforgiving, it's the simple mistakes that will cause you to waste dozens, if not hundreds, of hours. My name is Kodiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and today we're sharing everything we wish we knew sooner about Dune Awakening. From the moment you get into the game, you should be following the Journey system, a lengthy tutorial meant to teach you nearly everything there is to know about the game, guiding you to specific objectives and points of interest along the way. However, because of the nature of how many side quests there are to pick up along the way and how quickly they build up, you'll often find yourself completely sidetracked. If you haven't already checked out our Ultimate Beginner's Guide for Dune Awakening, definitely do so because there are a lot of best practices in there that you should be embracing. But one of the things we still see a lot of people missing, even amongst our own guildies, is to get your trials done ASAP. Critical technology is locked behind these trials, and it's important for your progression that you have access to them. Trial 2 unlocks the Static Compactor, an essential tool for gathering the white steaming fields of flower sand and spice sand from the periodic spice blooms that erupt on the map. These two resources carry through to the end game, and if you don't begin collecting these early while you're progressing, you're going to eventually hit a bottleneck. Trial 4 unlocks your Prescient Spice state, granting you much faster ability cooldowns, stamina regeneration, and amplifying your skill's effectiveness. You also get your third ability slot, which alone is a game changer. The final trial, Trial 8, gives you access to the Fremen's Death Still. Even with its high power consumption, this grants you the ability to pick up an entire NPC's body and bring them back to base. You can then place that corpse in the Death Still for a cool 25,000 water, stack enough of these, and it allows you to passively fill up your water supplies while you're adventuring, turning a tedious task into one you naturally do while questing and exploring. One resource you're going to need in the hundreds of thousands is flower sand. It's used to make silicone blocks, and these are used in everything from vital crafting stations, power systems, and even fuel, meaning you'll still be collecting this stuff hundreds of hours into your journey. We talked about how you need to get a static compactor ASAP from the second trial, but as soon as you see one of these patches on a portion of the desert that is close enough to the safety of land to farm, you should be doing it. Stock up a bike, a buggy, whatever you have with this valuable resource, because these safe patches don't stay around forever. Every time a sandstorm blows through, it'll shift where these patches are located in the area. Don't wait until you need flower sand to start farming this resource, because by that point it's too late and another roadblock will be in your way. In the same vein as flower sand, but even more important, is spice sand. You won't have a real need for this stuff until you reach the duraluminum and plastium tier, but if you wait until then to begin gathering spice sand, you're going to have an extremely hard time competing with all the other players who also waited this long. Every time you see or hear a spice bloom erupt, identified by the shockwave that's sent across Arrakis, you should drop everything you're doing, grab your static compactor, and try and secure as much spice sand as you can. These locations are far smaller than the blooms out in the deep desert, but they're also much more accessible. Recipes that begin requiring this precious resource will cost 40 plus melange for a single item, especially the higher tier vehicles, and at the painful ratio of 100 spice sand and 750 water for a single spice melange, this grind is something you will absolutely regret not starting as soon as you can. Just be careful of worms when harvesting these spice fields, since the use of items like the static compactors will aggro them much faster. At some point during your progression, we're positive you've seen at least one ship come crashing down into the desert, oftentimes far out into the sand that even getting close to one is tempting fate against that of Shai-Hulud. Even still, these dynamic events not only contain rare blueprints and gear, but massive amounts of rare crafting components like armor plating, complex machinery, industrial pumps, and more. Some items normally only found within PvP shipwrecks can be found from these crashed ships. There are 3 panels on each shipwreck that can be cut open with a cut array. One on top, often containing the least amount of loot, one on the port side containing a moderate amount of loot, and one on the starboard side containing the most. You'll want to hit up all 3 panels, but the key here is that you need to be fast and you can't get greedy. Oftentimes, if the wreck is far out, you'll only have time to cut one panel, loot everything, and speed away on your vehicle. Stay too long and you'll not only lose the spoils of the shipwreck, but everything you were carrying as well. From the moment you begin to set up your base in the northern parts of Vermilius Gap, one thing should be top of mind. How can I gather more water? In Dune Awakening, you will go through not hundreds, not thousands, not even hundreds of thousands, but millions of milliliters of water on your journey to the endgame. You have a few options, and it's important to understand them all. You'll want to consistently drain the blood of your enemies, filling up larger and larger blood sacs and transporting them back to base where your blood purifiers turn that blood into clean water. This means you'll want to get advanced blood purifiers running as soon as possible, replacing blood packs of older tiers with higher capacity ones of the next tier, ensuring that each time you're exploring, you're bringing back more blood than you did the last time. Once that starts happening, you'll need a place to store all of that incoming water, so you'll need to consistently increase the amount of cisterns in your base, replacing smaller ones with higher tier ones, whenever that makes sense for you. After this, you'll move into utilizing the Dew Reaper and Leader John combo to extract dew from all of the primrose flower fields scattered across Arrakis, siphoning the water right into your Leader Johns. There is a trick to this though. You'll want to be harvesting dew during the optimal window each night just before the dawn. This will yield 3 to 4x the amount of water off of each plant. If you hit T, you'll bring up the status menu. In the top right, you'll see a dial, and 3 sections of that dial are blue, with the first being slightly blue, the second being moderately blue, and the third being bright blue. Right when the dial hits that second blue section, it's optimal harvest time, and you'll want to harvest water with the Dew Reaper as quickly as possible. Be sure to carry enough Leader Johns with you, and you can start carrying water back to the base by the thousands and directly empty them into your cisterns. There are several locations on the map that have flower fields that can yield over 100,000 milliliters of water a night, and they're located in the 3 areas marked on the map. They will very likely be built on or blocked off entirely by opposing guilds if you're starting late, but if even one of these locations isn't touched on your server, you've hit the jackpot. Finally, don't forget about completing your trials and unlocking the Fremen's Death Still. This grants you the ability to pick up corpses of NPCs, take them back to base, and toss them into the machine, extracting 25,000 water per hour per body. It's the ultimate station for semi-passive water generation and key to your progressing through each tech tier. One of the biggest mistakes players can make in this game is skipping over the buggy and going straight for an ornithopter. We even have a video already on the channel dedicated to exactly this topic. Yes, you gain the ability to fly and be able to more rapidly explore Arrakis, but your resource capabilities are still limited because all you have is your handheld cut array. The ornithopter just gives you the ability to move around more efficiently, while the buggy's cut array attachment actually provides you the opportunity to earn double to triple the amount of resources from a single node. Just look at fuel cell bundles for a sec. At this point, our group is able to get nearly 450 fuel cells from a single node with our upgraded buggy, and that means we only need a handful of nodes next to our base to keep generators running. Don't be fooled by the poor efficiency message that pops up when harvesting materials. You are still getting vastly more resources by using the buggy laser than if you were to harvest by hand. Bottom line, don't sleep on the buggy because it's essential to any sort of resource independence within the game. If you've been moving items out of your vehicles one stack at a time, you are making life way harder than it needs to be. When inside the inventory of any container, look at the top left corner of the UI. There you'll notice a drop-down menu. Here you can select either your backpack, which is the default, or any of the vehicles currently within your territory, provided they have storage. This allows you to empty buggies full of ore, ornithopters full of spice, and any other convoy of resources that keep your production lines running directly into the chests you're accessing without needing to walk anywhere or carry anything directly in your inventory. This saves so much time that one thing we always try and do is have a permanent vehicle in base with an absurd amount of storage capacity, such as a buggy, and use that to move items between chests for efficient base management. Nothing is worse than a disorganized base, especially if you're part of a guild. People tend to put things all over the place until someone, usually fed up with all the chaos, comes up with a clean and easy to use storage system. Well, we did the math, and all that it requires are half walls and a thin floor tile such as the observer floor. Start by placing 2 half walls, whether it's a single block in size or a long shelf. Then connect these together using the observer floor tile. Underneath, because of its collision mesh, you're able to place medium storage boxes, which then allow you to put another set directly above them on the floor tiles you've placed. This allows you to effectively double your storage capacity in a smaller footprint that leads to a beautiful wall of chests such as this. At the time of making this video, there is a special Twitch drop which only lasts until June 24th, and while there could be other cosmetic options in the future, definitely try and secure these building blocks while you still can. If there is something we constantly see happening to our guildmates, as well as countless other players in the world, it's player vehicles breaking down or running out of fuel at the worst possible times. When your vehicle breaks down, the last thing you want to do is leg it all the way back to base to get some welding wire or vehicle fuel cells. Both of these are insanely easy to craft, which leads right into our tip. At all times, you should be carrying a couple vehicle fuel cells and welding wire for when your parts start to degrade. We aren't talking about just PvE degradation either. If you get into a fight in the deep desert, you're going to need to be able to peel away from enemies and repair your vehicle. Both items cost relatively little in terms of volume, and you could even store them in your vehicle storage for easy access. The bottom line is, just make sure you have them accessible. If you've ever been inside a testing station or hit up a settlement on the map, chances are you've run into these pill-looking chests that look all sciencey. Inside is almost always lucrative gear based on the tier of enemy that occupy that area, but also Imperial permits. These are special one-time use blueprints that give you the ability to craft a specific item one time once you've learned it within a watered sealed section of your base. If you want to craft more of this item, you'll need to acquire another copy of that permit. If you've looted one of these chests and never came back to that location again, you might not know that many of these chests have multiple different items that can drop from these locations, but it's all up to RNG. The further you progress into more difficult zones, the more expansive the loot pool for these chests become. This gives you a major reason to return to these points of interest, because you never know what Imperial permit you might get the next time you crack open a science chest. Combat in Dune Awakening is relatively straightforward, but there is more nuance than what initially presents itself. And as you venture into the more difficult areas of Arrakis, enemies hit harder, have way more health, and require either a plan or a busted build to take down. We found a whole host of solid combat tips that we see a lot of players not utilizing, so we figured we'd share them here. First up is using the Shigawire Claw offensively, a skill unlocked from the Trooper Trainer skill tree. It's not just for traversal, but can also be used to target an enemy and momentarily stagger them off balance, giving you and your party the ability to make short work of them. Second, let's talk about the Holtzman Shields, the device you unlocked early on in the game that allows you to negate incoming projectiles at the cost of some stamina, but is vulnerable to slow blade attacks. You might think melee is your only option when these get on the field, but you couldn't be more wrong. Yes, you can use disruptor weapons to quickly overload their power packs, but you can also use drill shot weapons. These fire a projectile that, when it strikes a Holtzman shield, will begin to burrow slowly into it before it reaches your target. However, you or your enemy can negate this burrowing effect by simply dashing once it makes contact with your shield. Get enough drill shots staggered on a target with a shield, and they simply won't have enough stamina to evade all the incoming damage. However, there is a downside to using a ranged weapon while having a Holtzman shield activated. Whenever NPCs and players fire a weapon, it will temporarily deactivate your shield, exposing you to substantial damage from opposing enemy attacks. If you've ever wondered why you took damage while firing at an enemy with your shield on, that's why. Luckily, the same also applies to enemies, and you can use this to your advantage. Simply bait them into firing, evade their shots, and return fire while their shield is coming back online. With any luck, you can catch a lot of players off guard knowing this mechanic. Once you've established a base, it's time to turn your attention to the Landsraad process, which you can check at any time by pressing L on the keyboard. Now, at first glance, this screams endgame system, but you and your guild can actually begin contributing to the Landsraad as soon as your guild aligns with either the Atreides or the Harkonnen by completing the respective quest at the Anvil Trade Post in Eastern Vermilius Gap. You'll need to pick one faction, and if you're in a guild, everyone will need to pick the same one. At the start of each week and every 24 hours after that, 5 random houses on this board will reveal their tasks for the week until the whole board is revealed. They all have tasks that can range from needing a specific resource, requiring a specific item to be delivered, or killing a certain faction of PvE enemies. All of these tasks will grant you contribution points, and if you look at the top of each task, there is a clear goal amount that's needed to be met, usually around 70k. Every single guild on every siege in your world contributes to this system, and the first faction to reach 70,000 wins that house's vote for the week. If it's an item quest, you need to turn in these items at the respective faction's quartermaster. Atreides has their location slightly north of Helios Gate, while Harkonnen is located over here near the Riftwatch base. Having bases close to these locations like ours is vital for endgame when you need to quickly turn in items before other guilds. You want your faction to win these votes, because if your faction holds the majority of the votes at the end of the week, each guild, based on their contribution, will have voting power that they can allocate to one of 3 randomized decrees that week. These are powerful buffs that affect every single guild aligned to the winning faction. For example, this week, Chom Refining Contract is available. That will cause all repair costs and refining times to be reduced by 75%, which is insane. If one week a Landsraad vendor is chosen as a reward, you can find them at each major faction city, both of which are clearly labeled with Landsraad vendor icons. Just know each of these 4 vendors is a different vendor, and only one will be active depending on the decree. But this isn't the only reason you're trying to complete these house tasks. Your point contribution to each task is on a personal basis. At the bottom of the UI panel, you'll see house rewards with numbers down the left side. These are contribution thresholds that award the listed items at the end of the week if your faction wins. Hit 700 points, you get that listed item. Hit 7,000 points, everything from that and below is yours. There are unique blueprints, rare crafting materials, weapons, armor, and more in each of these house tasks, and it's up to what you are looking to earn that week that helps influence which tasks you should focus on. There are 2 more important things to note. First, there are PvP control points randomly placed in the deep desert assigned to specific houses that, by holding them, will passively generate points for your faction while held on that specific task. Second, and this is super endgame focused, you can locate the respective house representative somewhere in the world early before their task is revealed, and give them 300 spice melange to reveal what their task will be. You'd be silly to give away such a crucial and time-intensive resource to produce, but it's there as an option. I get it, the Landsraad is a complex system, but gives players at all stages of the game clear tasks with potent rewards that help fuel your progression. So there you have it, everything we wish we knew sooner about Dune Awakening. As always, if you appreciate the work that goes into making these guides, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing. Of course, leave us a comment down below if you know any great tips and tricks, or if you have a suggestion for what video we make next. My name is Cody Atkin from everyone here at Legacy Gaming. Thanks for watching, and play on.